When I started to think about what I was going to do here, I wanted it to be very much a focused operational aspect. But as soon as you go down to the route of having a very operationally focused discussion, you have to bring back into why. And the why is very, very important. People just generally don't give you a lot of cash to go and build something. There has to be the partnership, and that partnership with the brand. So one of the things that I've tried to do is balance what I'm giving to you today, and I hope that you'll understand that I had to put some of these aspects in to really justify exactly why we chose to go to this route, why we've chosen to deliver everything that you're about to see. Now I'm going to take my time and go through some of the slides here, and there's a lot of information, so if I just put it up there and allow you to read it, please do so, and then I'll get on to the operational stuff and give you some depth and understanding from that. Right at the end of it, I'm going to play a small video, and that small video I hope will let you gauge some of the complexity that we went through, some of the reasons why we took our time, and some of the results that we've got. So moving forward, the background, and this is one of the whys. We're part of the Bacardi Martini business, 1997, based on a 1761 recipe by Thomas Dakin. Now that's very important because that's the DNA of everything that we do. Bombay Sapphire is made using a unique vapor infusion process, as the only 100% vapor infused London dry gin in the world. So that might be quite interesting to look at single multiple shots on vapor infusion as well. So there's another dimension that we can potentially have. The provenance and quality of these ingredients is assured by the Master of Botanicals. I've been very fortunate to work with Ivano, and those of you who know him, he is probably one of the nicest guys that I've ever had to work with. So that's another one of the whys. Creates a versatile and balanced gin and works well for mixed and cocktails. So this is all the bits and pieces that you guys know, but it adds depth to why. So increasing demand and phenomenal success. And that's one of the reasons why we went to the board and we managed to get the opportunity to build our distillery. And that's one of the things that I want to bring to you, is that we are first and foremost, we're an operational distillery. We make gin. That's the prime reason to be there. The secondary aspect is a centre of learning. And that's what we really want to bring forward, is the centre of learning, the opportunity to understand the botanicals, to see the botanicals, to touch, to feel, to taste. And that's how we help to educate people about gin manufacturing, gin distillation. So, rising consumer expectations. And this is one of the things that I've been asking quite a few times. I think a lot of the distillers here would have been asked, why? Why brand homes? Why those opportunities? Why travel to Cuba? Okay, it's about exploring, it's about understanding, it's about experiencing. Why have a different taste in your curry? It's all of those things. And we, as consumers of all of the products, we have, an understanding of what we're doing and where we're going from. And that's what the customers, our consumers, are bringing back in. They want to know why, and they want to explore, and they want to understand. Bring a distillation in-house. I think most of you will know that we weren't the masters of our own fate regarding distillation until recently. And that's one of the very important things, because beyond all of the aspirational aspects of the brand, by bringing it in-house, we're growing our own business. And that's one of the key things. We have to grow our own business. We are a family-owned business, and we have to make a fair and equitable return for our shareholders, the family. It's as simple as that. The home of Bombay Sapphire. We deserved a home. We wanted to have an opportunity to bring people in to understand about vapor infusion, to understand about the botanicals, the core DNA, the additional Q-Bev and grains of paradise, etc. However, this also gave us potential, volume growth and additional capacity, key in our aspirations over the next 5 to 10 years. A vehicle for growth, so we can use this to generate extra sales, extra revenue, and also put that back into the development of further assets within the business. And again, I hope you notice that I'm talking about the business, and the business is distillation. Business continuity, very, very key. So we have 2 still houses, we have 2 boilers, we have 2 compressors. Basically, we've got 2 of everything apart from fire suppression pumps, which we have 3 of. So one of the things, as you may also know from the industry, that we had an incident not long ago with our primary manufacturers. And so the brand and also the directors think very long and hard before we take another route into what we're going to do. So protection of your assets, absolutely key and critical to our understandings. Elevated asset protection, there we go. Fire, security and recovery. How quickly can you get back into the market? How quickly can you deliver against expectations of the bottling? So, Hopefully that explains to you some of the why. The vision, to create a state-of-the-art, sustainable gin distillery. Very simple, very pure, and that's our primary function. State-of-the-art, sustainable gin distillery. Now, you have to say that up front, because that colours everything that you do. One of the slides I'm going to show later on is that you just can't dip your toe into sustainability. I was talking to a journalist not long ago, and he told me about the greenwash effect. So you put this lovely green kind of paint across yourself, scratch the surface though, and underneath it's not there. I believe you have to really immerse yourself into it. If you don't, you simply won't get the payback. And green can pay back. It does pay back, and I can show you how. Craftsmanship. Aha, I mentioned the C word. Craftsmanship, care, passion and excellence in production are celebrated. Now, I thought I'd throw that one out there because I actually believe there is a place for it. Note I said craftsmanship, not craft, because we run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 355 days of the year. We have to have people who have the craftsmanship, the care, the passion to deliver every single day. I can't be there, so we have to have a team. And it's understanding, it's the craft, it's the care, it's the passion of all those people who make it has to be continuous through every single one. And so therefore, I actually believe that's got a real place in what we do, what we all do. So it's not craft, but it's craftsmanship. And we have to have that to get consistency, because underneath everything that we do, there is a kind of unwritten promise when that, mixologist, barman, or I go home and I open that G&T, or the bottle for a G&T on a Friday night, has to be the same. Therefore, you have to have the consistency, and only people will give you that. Amalgamation of heritage, state-of-the-art, design and function. So, one of the things I'm going to talk about, and I explained a little bit on, we've got the botanicals, we've got the process for vapor infusion. So we have those two aspects, but what can we do? What can we vary? And how can we develop the distillery to the next kind of phase, if you want? Integrity and honesty in all that we do. The bottom line is that everything must have a part to play. I like to say that, and one of the other speakers said it earlier on, that the distillery we've got is greater than the sum of all the parts. But each part has to play a role. It's like when you create another gin. Do I throw 25 botanicals in there or whatever? No, each one has to play a role. It has to have a contribution. That gin's got to be the greater than the sum of each individual aspect going in. So very, very important that we do what we say what we do. There's nothing faked, there's nothing fixed, there's no smells, no sounds. It has to be on show, because if not, you'll get found out. So very, very, very important to us. And a world-class home which leaves guests inspired and touched. One of the things that I used to work with was about world-class manufacturing. Okay, distillation, distillery, world-class manufacturing, operations, it all has a great place, and it sits in that kind of, I thought about, was it Venn diagrams, in that area of confluence in the middle. All those aspects coming together to deliver the next generation of distillery where we're going. Sustainability is called to all decision making. As I said, you can't just dip your toe into it. You really have to throw everything you've got into it. And every aspect reflects the premium nature of Bombay Sapphire. Again, some of the marketing stuff, but it has to be there. That's why it took us so long to deliver this, because it had to be perfect. So that was the vision, the location, and some of the challenges. So we finally found our site within the beautiful Hampshire countryside. We looked at 30 different sites throughout the country, and it was a challenge. And as I said, some of the challenges. So we're in the beautiful Hampshire countryside. We are not far from London, and I'll get to that in a minute, but the beautiful buildings of a suitable size. The bottom line is that if you're putting in a 35-foot still, you have to have a building that can actually house it. You have to have a boiler house. You have to have GNS. You have to have a tank farm. You have to have an opportunity for staff welfare. I've got to have toilets. I've got to have showers, because we have an integrated cycle plan. Therefore, people have to be able to shower, have to feed themselves, etc. So the buildings had to be key. So this site offers us excellent geography as well. Just an hour from London and Heathrow, in an area with high tourism. So we are in Laverstoke, which is in between Newbury and Winchester. So one of the things I'm going to talk about later is supply chain. And supply chain is critical in our thinking as well. Noted just 1 hour from London, people come in, they want to come and visit. We've also got Stonehenge just down the road as well. That has to be part of the why. It was for us. because we've put a lot of time, a lot of effort into making our brand home. Laverstoke Mill is situated in the conservation area. Now this is, as I said, one of the challenges. We are in a conservation area. We're in a site of special scientific interest. We've got bats. Okay, I've just found dormice last month. Okay, so if anybody knows dormouse, they have the same rights, if you want, as a great-crested newt. Okay, bats you can only do, because we have maternity roosts for bats, we could only work between October and April. As soon as April turned over, gone. We couldn't work on any of those buildings in case we disturbed a bat. So these are some of the things that we had to do. But we've got trout, otters. I saw the otters playing, fantastic, kingfishers, swans and herons. So this is some of it. Situated for the crystal clear river test, the purest chalk stream in the UK. Now this runs straightly through the middle of our site. So design had to be key to everything we did. I've even got a policy on using salt for de-icing. So that's how far we had to go down. The site heritage was very, very important to us. So Laverstoke Mill was recorded as far back as 906 AD, and it's mentioned in the Domesday Book. I think it's primarily just a corn mill tied to the main manor house. Tied mill probably for cereal. Been under the ownership of William the Conqueror, Henry VIII, and has enjoyed 4 royal visits. 1719, this is the critical part for me. 1719, Henry Portal expanded the site, enabling to go in manufacture of cotton rag paper. So very, very important that he used the water, natural water source, because that's one of the things I'll come back to, which is key for us. But he established there, and one of the things he did is he built the village. Laverstoke was to serve the mill, and the mill was to serve the village. And so labour and labour resource and tied into the distillery, very, very important to us. 1724, literally 5 years after he started manufacturing paper, he had the royal warrant for making all the banknotes for the Bank of England. Critical to us because India House, which is our largest distillery, is named after all the banknotes which were created for India. So we've really started to establish ourselves and bring into play some of the heritage of the site. So increasing prosperity, manufacturing the banknotes for the entire British Empire. I believe at one point in time there was over 100 banknotes for 100 different countries, so all of the empire was made there. I think they actually started printing euros there, but they also thought about putting the little metal strip through banknotes. So that was something that was Henry Portal, or the Portal family. But then 1968, the last notes passed out the door, and that's when it turned into a PCI membrane. So it's membrane filtration, and also Southern Water had a site there, and then latterly, from 2005 to 2008, it was used by police dogs. And they used to run around the site, and they used to chase bad guys in big rubber suits. So that's the heritage of our site. The holistic approach for supply chain. And this is where I get into some of the interesting stuff, which, you know, I had to go through that to explain why. So this, to me, is the holistic approach to the supply chain. Circular consumerism. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with things like circular consumerism. Is there anyone? No? Okay. Circular consumerism is about once you've got raw materials into a supply chain, you don't let it go. Whereas linear consumerism is it goes into a supply chain, you use it once, you throw it away. A washing machine, for instance. You build it, goes in your supply chain, it breaks, you throw it away. Linear. Circular is about how, once it's in your supply chain, how can you mend it? How can you reuse it? How can you adapt it? It's very, very important to the thinking behind our supply chain. Diverting tankers, so no additional movement. So the location was critical to us. We bring in NGS from Europe. Very, very important. So basically it comes straight to us and then goes to bottling. So there's no additional tanker movements. Very, very critical. Gin supply for bottling, straight out. One of the things that we also looked at, dry bulk couplings. And I always love this one because they're the Formula One style. Have you ever seen it when they drive in, straight on the side, done? This is about what we're talking about, our tankers. So we're starting to think about how we can innovate and actually make ourselves compliant with the Scotch whisky industry, which in a few years' time is going to have all bottom-filled tankers. So it's something that we thought about, how do we future-proof ourselves. Botanical supply amalgamation. One of the things that I've done is bring botanicals in. Do you get a full lorry? Absolutely not. We do now. We have full lorries every single time. Those lorries are absolutely jam-packed, and we have a supply chain. It comes in, so we have an order point. So we're starting to use Kanbans. We're starting to use world-class manufacturing to make ourselves more cost-effective, to make ourselves give a better revenue, a better payback on our investment. Very, very important for us. Waste. Waste, as I said, this is where we start to think about our holistic approach. So wastewater. Because we're in a triple SI, anything that touches the ground is captured. Okay, so rainwater, if it touches the ground, we keep it, it goes into a separate tank. How can we do this in a sensible way? So we have online monitoring, online density measurement. So before it goes out to the waste effluent, we measure it, so nothing goes out the site without us understanding exactly what's going on. Zero to landfill. It's one of our promises to ourselves that we are going to have zero to landfill. We're very, very fortunate. We do put zero to landfill already. We have a waste incineration site just down the road, which we partner with one of the majors. And so basically nothing goes out. Botanical waste, we reuse. Okay, the fence goes to re-rectification. And that's another thing that we looked at, is about how we generate value back from our waste and from our byproducts. So fence was, as I said, one of the things how we can generate revenue. So how can we partner with our suppliers to make sure that we backload everything so there's no empty, wasted journeys? And that's one of the things that's very important to us. If you're bringing GNS in a tanker, how can you refill it to make sure you don't ship air around? Labour resource. Laverstoke Mill, we've got labour. The village was the mill was the village. Very, very important that where possible, we employ people from the local area. And that's one thing that we really try to do. It's not always possible, but where we could, we did. Because you get a following, you get that, and I'm going to say it again, you get that care, you get that passion, and you get the people who want to learn distillation and distillation philosophy. The travel plan, again, very important to us, had to be holistic, have to have every aspect. So we looked at tankers, we looked at coaches, we looked at cars, we looked at public, so rail, bus, all of those links, and also cycle. So we had to maintain operational cycle areas. We've got to have showers for visitors, but also, more importantly, I've got to have a CCTV camera on that cycle rack so that we have a duty of care for the people who cycle. Process innovation, this is one of the bits that I'd like to kind of expand upon. 4 non-negotiables, quality, botanicals, vapor infusion, manual control, and cut points. Quality is a very subjective thing. For me, when I came into the program and to the build, quality for me is the same as. It's not better, it's not worse, it's exactly the same as. And I'm not afraid to say, it took me nearly 9 months to get it right. Okay? And if you can imagine, after the investment we've just done, all the people looking down on you, there were some very sleepless nights. But we did it. Consumer complaints are right down. But it was key to everything we did. Quality had to be the same. Botanicals, 1761 recipe, DNA. So we couldn't actually move on those. However, control systems, team viewer, safety systems. So control systems, we've got a PCS7 system, and you'll see a little snippet of that. For me, information is all about making better decisions. It's not about making the decisions for you, it's about giving you the information to understand your process, to make it as repeatable as possible so you get consistency, and having that information allows you to make better decisions. And so we use things like PCS7, but I've got TeamViewer. So if we have a problem on the plant, I can dial in immediately, I can see exactly what's going on. I can understand whether there's a tanker problem, I can understand whether there's a boiler issue, anything. And that's one of the things, because we've got to think about our labour resource. Yes, it's local where possible, but do we really want to call someone in on a Sunday afternoon or a bank holiday Monday? No. Let's think about how we can use technology to support our systems, but not make those decisions. Safety, of course, we've got a S7, Siemens S7 system, so we've got all of the safety aspects, and we use a BMS, building management system. So I can look at temperature control all the way throughout my site, I can look at how we're supplying it with plate heat exchangers from recovered water, everything. It enables me to deploy resource, and not walking around and looking at meters, but making gin. And that's where we should be focusing on our core functions, not doing the ancillary stuff. So again, technology builds on that. Flow control and P&ID. Flow control for us, very important. So we've got Coriolis meters, which on the back of every single spirit safe. So from that, what I can do is it tells me the flow rate, mass flow rate, it tells me everything, and I've got P&ID control on my steam valves. So I get consistent cycles. More importantly, and I believe there was a talk earlier on about distillation rate and extraction rates, and therefore I can actually really understand the process, and I can understand how I modify it, so I can create novel extractions, I can create different gins just by looking at the extraction rates, just by looking at the ABV. So all of my stills, I've got variable valves on the reflux. So even on the pot stills, on the Carter head stills, or the Dakin stills as we reinvented them. All of those, I can actually understand the vapor flow, I can understand that it's not just the ABV of your GNS stroke water mixture in the bottom, we can start to play with all of those. But it also gives us consistency. Our distilleries, like most of everyone else's, are open to the air environment. So all we've got is vents. So when it's -2, -3 out there, you do get more reflux. However, we can change the reflux that we've got on our columns so that we get consistency of flow, consistency of ABV. So again, we're starting to think about how we can deliver on that promise, on that expectation from our consumers. Still design, pot and dakin. So we've got pot stills. We've got 2 exceptionally large pot stills, about 12,000 litres. Are they normal? No, they're not. What we've got is we worked with an Italian firm, and I was delighted to work with them, and they've delivered some very, very nice stills. However, what they also is they took us down a different route. They took us down to, okay, how can you control your stills? So one of the things that we've got is we've got stainless steel steam jackets, but they're not stainless steel because we've also coated them. They've got 3mm copper coating on the outside, which has very high surface area because it has nanotechnology on it. So again, we've got the copper, but we've got longevity. Our stills, our home is going to be there for 50, 100, 150 years. They're still going to be working, and they're still going to be delivering high quality gin in that period of time. What it also means is that we can use higher pressure. So when we heat up, because we're not steeping, we're vapor infusion, we can use higher steam pressures, higher temperatures, therefore we have less delay in how we manufacture, therefore we can sweat our assets more. Very important. We also have, as I said, reflux collars on all of our pot stills, so we can control exactly the rate, the flow of everything coming out of the still. The dakin stills. So we took one of our original stills and we basically took the whole thing apart. Not only have we got new steam jackets, we've also got, as the Italians call it, is serpentines. So we've got coils in the bottom of all of our stills, and what that means is we get greater surface area, which means we get greater control, which means we can control the energy in, which controls the vapor out. And what that does for us is it means that we can actually control our distillation rate and therefore extraction. Online blending. We fill our stills, but we have 2 valves, so we actually dilute as it goes in. So what we do is we blend our GNS with water as it comes in, and then we put it through a plate heat exchanger, and we preheat. So we don't charge our stills at 5 degrees C if it's cold, or maybe 14 degrees C if it's during the summer, or maybe 18. We charge our stills at 68 degrees Celsius. So I have recovered heat from the process. So we use the enthalpy of vaporization from the physical change from vapor to liquid. We capture that in the condensers, and we preheat through a plate heat exchangers. So what that does is it takes an hour off my distillation time. More than just an hour for distillation time, it takes about 600 kilograms of steam out of the requirement. And that's about something like, I don't know, 450 kilowatts. So if you think about the energy from each still, we're running both those stills in pair, we're talking about nearly 900 kilowatts in the first hour of distillation we've taken out of the process. We've also meant that we can turn our stills around quicker. Very, very important. Heat recovery, as I said. What we've got is a 3-stage condenser. The first stage at the top, we use heat recovery. So as the vapors come out, it changes state. So it goes from vapor to liquid, no change in temperature, but it gives out the enthalpy of vaporization. We capture that in hot water. We store it and we use it. Very, very important, and I'll speak about it later on as we talk about our glass houses as well. And we've got a faints cooler. So at the end of distillation, we don't have to run our stills out to completion. Because we are vapor infusion, we drop straight out through a faints cooler, saves another hour of distillation, and basically saves another 600 kilograms of steam per still. So from a 12-hour distillation, we've cut 2 hours out of our process. So if you think about that, that's 1/6 of your process. Very, very important how we look at return on this. Now, we are a single shot. We do manufacture, so we have to make sure that we do deliver the greatest output from our stills with a minimum effort. And this is why, as I was saying about craft, care, my team have to understand exactly what they're doing so that they can do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Safety and business continuity, dual redundancy, boilers, stillhouse, compressors, absolutely everything. When we designed the whole aspect, we had safety systems. So we got ATEX, we got zoning, we did HAZOPS, all of that good stuff. We did FMEA, so failure rate, mechanism, etc. So we understand if anything goes down, what's the critical spares for our distillery? How do we get it back up and running as soon as possible? Bunding. All of our tanks are bunded, and we've also got foam on all of our bunded areas. Our still houses are also bunded as well. Therefore, if we have any leaks, it does not go into the river test. Critical to us, because living with a river test, which is England's purest chalk stream, straight through the middle of a distillery, is very, very challenging. Radar gauges, high highs and Rossoffs. Basically standard in most distilleries of a reasonable size. So we've got radar gauges, means they're accurate, very accurate. Also HMRC, we don't have to dry dip all of our vats. High highs, so if you overfill, we've got Rossoffs, which means that if we have any high highs or we start overfilling a tank, whole process shuts down. Very, very safe, and bearing in mind our history, you can understand why. Deluge, sprinklers, foam. Standard stuff, but we've gone, so all of our tank farms, we've got triple layer sprinklers on all of our tanks, so that therefore if you do have a fire, you'd have no collapse on any of your vats. Hybrid adiabatic chiller. Now I've put this one in because it's a bit of fun. Not only does it sound good, what it is, it's basically, instead of a cooling tower, we've got two radiators, car radiators, and we suck air through it. When it gets really hot, we run water down the outside. And what it means is we have a very small sump, and we use UV to sterilise that. No chemicals, no Legionella, you don't have to register with a local council. Very, very important when you're thinking about sustainability and also your impact on the environment. And a catastrophe tank. Very important on our tanker station. Anything leaks, it goes straight down to 30,000 litre. It's contained, it's safe. Nothing goes out to drain. And there we go, our salt and de-icing policy. When I first was told about this from the Environment Agency, I smirked a little bit, but it's important. As I said, you can't just dip your toe in, you have to really immerse yourself. Sustainability and BREEAM. Does anyone know what BREEAM was? Anyone heard of BREEAM? Well, BREEAM is the British Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method, and it's something that we really put in. You can't just dip your toe in. The world's foremost environmental assessment method. I'm just going to lay these ones out. There's a lot of information here. However, you can go and understand it from the video. So, standard for best practice and sustainability, and one of the most comprehensive, widely recognised measures. So what did we do? Well, we won the 2014 Design Award, which is great, but I've now been challenged within 2 years' time, I have to win the In-Use Award. So you can't just say that you can do these things well, you have to deliver. And that's one of the really good things that's coming out from Bacardi. They're forcing me to make those savings, to deliver on the design. We're also the only distillery to win a BREEAM Outstanding for refurbishment, and we're the only certified distillery. So all in all, it's been a fantastic project to work on. It really has delivered on these. Sustainability. Renewable and low carbon energy provided. We've got a biomass boiler. So basically what we use is we use sustainably harvested wood chip. More importantly, we use our botanicals. Because we're a steeped gin, we take our botanicals, we harvest them, we burn them. Very, very important, because not only does that save me approximately, the best thing you can do with botanicals, if you put them to compost, you get £40 a tonne. Okay, you landfill them, £120 a tonne, then you've got to pay for them to be picked up. I burn them. So sustainability pays back, it works. Now, when I run those stills flat out, every day I get one still free, based on botanical burning. So it actually does pay back in. Wood chips sourced locally. Photovoltaic array and hydroelectric. So we've got photovoltaic. Solar panels, they're great, 7-year payback. But the real one for me is the hydroelectric turbine. It runs probably about 250 to 300 light bulbs. It doesn't sound like much, but it does it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it goes back straight back into the international grid. Pays back in just under 2 years. Lovely payment. Heating for the buildings and glass houses. So we've got 2 exceptionally large glass houses, which you'll see. Now, to heat those in midwinter, it's about 250 kilowatts. Now, to put that into scale, your boiler at home is about 24, 25 kilowatt combi boiler. So 10 of those, just to keep them warm. We do it all through recovery from the process. So that's the only way we could actually have them with a hand on the heart and say, do you know what? We actually do care about the environment, because otherwise it's carbon usage and it's non-renewables. We also heat all of our stills, so all of the preheating on the stills is done by heat recovered, and we heat the buildings as well. So materials, bricks, roof tiles, all reused and demolished in buildings. Rainwater harvesting and flow restricted water devices. This sounds great. However, I'm going to give you one heads up on this. If you do use one, make sure you've got Legionella compliance on it, and make sure you've got UV recirc on the rainwater. Just as a little bit of advice there. Existing ecology and biodiversity. So we've got to plant things, which makes ourselves more sustainable, but it also gives the environment that people expect. When they come to see our distillery, when they come to learn about gin distillation, they want it to be great surroundings. So biodiversity is very important. But also, when we cut things like branches down, we leave them so that invertebrates can then go there. So you've got a complete system of ecology. The invertebrates go into the trees, they create food for the bats, they also create food for the fish. So it's the circle of life. Integrate travel plan. Okay. Lead design, Thomas Heatherwick. So we use Thomas Heatherwick. So some of you may have known him from the Routemaster bus, others from the Olympic Cauldron. So he delivered our glass houses. And we've got 2 fantastic glass houses, and we use them to showcase our botanicals. Now, there was a comment about bananas in gin. We've actually got 2 banana plants, and we've got 30 or 40 bananas, and we will be having a look at a banana gin probably sometime, just for a bit of fun. If you'd like to come down, we can do a little distillation. Self-discovery and whispering benches. So we've got the opportunity for people to come in. You don't have to be hit as soon as you walk through the door about brand. You don't have to be, really high pressure on it. What we prefer is that people come in. Consumers make their own minds up. Consumers have that level of understanding now, and it goes back to the why. There's that level of exploration, and that's why we want people to come and understand our home rather than just tell them about it. The glass houses, dry room with the botanicals. So we've got an opportunity where people can come and look at our botanicals. Taking Still House, fully hosted still experiences, and the Heritage Room. So those are all some of the access that we provide to our stills. We actually walk through the still houses. So we have fully hosted tours, so people can actually come in and they can hear distillation, they can see distillation, okay, they can smell what's going on, the gin as it comes across. We allow people to get close, not too close because obviously we're bonded, but people can actually come in and walk through the still house. So, I know I've whipped through that quite quickly, but it's a huge amount of information, and literally I have just scratched the surface. So there's a little video here that I'm going to play, which I hope adds a bit of depth to kind of what I've been talking about, and I really hope this is going to play.
Welcome to a journey of beauty and heritage, driven by passion, craft and innovation, defining a legacy for an iconic brand. By 2007, Bombay Sapphire was pioneering the gin category, but nowhere could it call home. So a search began to find a unique location to distill and showcase Bombay Sapphire gin. Then, Laverstoke Mill was discovered.
I just came by this place and thought, wow, maybe this could work.
History, nature and architecture combined to inspire a plan for this new spiritual home, overseen by one of the world's best.
Our role is to try to make something really special happen.
A state-of-the-art gin distillery and visitor experience is designed. 2 extraordinary new glasshouses, the stunning centrepiece.
There seemed to be a relatively clear opportunity just to make glass houses that were beautiful. It's really simple.
The taller one will be higher than this.
The vision was clear, the ambition huge.
If you have a big idea, something that really excites you when you see the design, then that's how other people will feel about it when it's finished.
February 2012 sees work underway, and the true nature of Laverstoke Mill is revealed.
The lads have to strip the slates off with a lot of care and attention because there's a possibility of bats being underneath the tiles.
Crumbling old bricks given a fresh life.
It's all about putting it back as it was originally.
Bold new techniques pioneered at every turn.
We've got one shot at this. It's got to be right.
And Europe's best are on board as Spanish engineers hone the 2 glasshouses by hand and crane onto site piece by unique piece. While Italian craftsmen hammer copper into finest gin-making shape, then install them into their fine new home.
It really is part of a living, breathing organism that we're putting life into.
We're getting closer and closer, which makes it more exciting.
Away from site, gin gardens are being rooted out.
The thicket of it in the glass house in Laverstoke.
Beautiful bar tops are being handmade. And historic banknotes tracked down and brought back home.
Just over 100 years old.
A year after starting, in India House, the 10 botanicals are mixed for the first time.
Well done, Nick. Thank you, though.
And Bombay Sapphire begins to flow.
Yeah, this is just the first kind of footstep before we can supply Bombay Sapphire from Laverstoke.
Everybody's got a spring in their step now.
The last months are a flurry of painting and shop fitting, glass bending and gardening, brick sculpting and planting. And the but signs are looking good. At last, the time has come.
And that's it. Hope you found it interesting.